Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. In this video I will review the winning 3 apps of PAW2, which was about helping developers do their job. So in case you don't know what PAW is, that stands for Philipp App Wars, and that's basically kind of an app jam where I give you a topic and you then need to make an app around this topic. Then you have 1 month of time to actually build that app, submit it to my email address, and I will actually review these apps and show the 3 that I actually like the most in terms of UI, UX, and code. And then I will show you these in this video here, give you feedback in all of these categories, and the 3 winners will actually also get to choose one of my paid courses for free. One more thing before we actually get started is check down below. There is a join button now under my channel. With that join button, you can actually get access to all my live stream recordings from Twitch. I'm regularly doing that twice a week. And in case you just miss these streams where I'm live coding, where I show you how I actually approach a real app, an app that is bigger than the apps I can show in my courses. If you want to see how I do that, how I also struggle, how I fix my bugs, and how I answer your questions, then check out this join button for like $5 a month. You can get access to all my past live stream recordings and to all future ones. Without further ado, let's actually jump into it and start with place number 3, and that is called Devhub. So you can see that has a cool splash screen. And well, what is Devhub? Devhub is basically kind of a project management app. It's a to-do list app, very simple app, but I kind of like it. So you can see I'm actually logged in already with my Google account, and then I can see my to-dos here. So let's actually see how this app works. So we can create a new to-do here. For example, record YouTube video. And notes, I don't know, test node. Let's just see how this looks like. We can select the priority, high or low. Yeah, let's just choose high here and click add to-do. And there we go. Now we can click on this to-do, and here we then see the details. For each to-do item, we have such a checklist here, which is currently empty. So let's create a checklist. For example, well, how do we start recording a YouTube video? First, we want to brainstorm some ideas. We add this, there we go, it's pending, so we're currently doing that. We can add one more, we can say, prepare script maybe. There we go. And once we're done with that, we can actually hit check here, and you can see it actually completes this progress bar here. And yeah, until we're actually done with that. Then this app has a little bit more to offer. If we go back, it has a dev tab here with a cool animation here for the Kotlin logo. And that's basically just some links to the Android documentation, I think. So if we click on that, yeah, it just links you to the Android documentation. Means a cool little extra. Not sure why this isn't mobile optimized, but that's probably the Android website. So yeah, we just have some typical Android topics, and we have a tab for chats. So in here we can actually create group chats like this one, in which we can actually help each other. So for example, hi guys, how to start a coroutine. Then if we send this, then yeah, there's our message. So that's it for the features. Let's actually get to the feedback. I will structure the feedback in UI, UX, and code, starting with UI now. So what I actually don't like that much is this dashed line here. So I'm not sure if I like it. I would have probably rather designed this with a simple card, maybe a little bit shadow. But yeah, it gives the app some kind of special touch, I think. But I'm actually not sure if I like it. And by the way, I will give a lot of constructive feedback here. So my points that I mention here will rather be negative. That doesn't mean that your app is bad. Same for the other 2 apps I'm reviewing here. I just want that you improve. And if you are one of the top 3 apps, then you can already be sure that your app is pretty cool. So I just mentioned the points that I would improve, that I would do differently here. Then there are some lines in this app that are actually hardly visible. For example, this one here. Here's a dark blue line on a darker blue background. You have to look very closely to actually see that. So that is something. Here it's a white line. That's easily visible. So I don't know why you made this one just a lighter blue line with an even darker blue background. I would have stayed consistent here and just also made this a white line just like here, or maybe just some other color that is actually well visible here. And the same counts for this Kotlin developer text here. I don't even know if you can see that, but here's a text that says Kotlin developer, and that is not really visible. So I would have made that probably in this color or in white. Then on some buttons we have this white border, this very, very thin border, which I think doesn't need to be. This looks a little bit weird because it's so light, this border. I would probably remove this and maybe give this button a little bit of shadow, which I think it has. But I would probably remove this border. Then what I have written down here, maybe decrease the border radius for these items. I think that's just my personal taste. I would decrease that a bit. I think that's a little bit too much of a rounding. Just maybe to like half of that. I think that would actually look a little bit better here. Then let's get to the UX feedback. Starting with this list here. So if we check such an item, you see the whole list gets updated. That is not optimal. And that is also, in terms of code style, something you shouldn't do. If you just uncheck or check one item, you don't want that the whole list gets updated and also has this flashing animation. So I'm not sure right now if this project uses Jetpack Compose or XML, but if you use normal recycler view adapters, you can just use Devhub, and Devhub will take care of all the animations when actually updating your list. But yeah, in this case, you need to imagine that if you have a list with 1,000 entries and you just want to check one entry and it needs to update the whole list, that's not so optimal. And then one more critique point I have here regarding UX is this button here. It looks very, very similar to a floating action button, which you already have here. You only want one floating action button per screen. So I would probably just remove the circle around this edit icon and not highlight it that much, because otherwise it's not clear which button is highlighted in this screen. And a floating action button always has the purpose to highlight one specific action, which is in this case just to edit to do item, which is totally fine. But editing is not the mandatory action on the screen, so I would not highlight it that much. And one little bug I found here is when we actually use this edit option, and we update this. So let's say I change the priority to low. You can see here it's high priority right now. I change it to low, click update to do, but it actually stays at what it was before. And it only refreshes if I actually go back. And yeah, now you can see it's low priority, but it's not live updating. And in terms of UX, that is of course quite confusing. So you're not sure, did I just really update this item or not? But that is it for my feedback, for my points which I would improve. Let's actually get to the code part of this app, which is here. So I can't analyze every single detail here in the code, of course. I got quite some submissions, and doing that for every project is just too much. But I just picked out some elements that I would actually improve in the code and will now go through it, and everybody, no matter if you participated or not, will be able to learn something from that. Okay, so the first thing I don't really like about this code is that it doesn't really use a real architecture. I mean, we have fragments and view models here, but let's open one, for example. It has all the data logic here in the view model. So we have a chat view model, and you can see it uses Firebase Firestore to actually handle all the data stuff, which is fine, but that is nothing that belongs in the view model. So doing it like this would make this view model here completely untestable. Because usually you put your business logic in view models, so not actually data logic that you have here. And business logic is very easy to test with unit tests. Unit tests run fast. That is their purpose. You have a lot of unit tests. And if you just put in your data logic like this one here and actually hard coding that you use Firebase Firestore, then this will also be used in your unit tests. And you don't want to take your Firebase quota in your unit tests and actually make network calls that take time. So what I would do instead is all this logic that involves data here, I would put that in a repository. And then you can also take this Firebase Firestore instance, wrap this into an interface. So you could do something like, yeah, that's very spontaneous here, but I'll specify it up here. Don't do this in your actual code, but just for simplicity. We could have an interface, something like, for example, remote data source. And then this remote data source could just specify some functions like these here. So you could have suspend function to add a chat. And then also, yeah, let's add the group name and the chat. And of course more functions for whatever use case you actually have. And then you can take this remote data source interface and actually pass it in your repository constructor, because you don't have that here. Let's do this for the view model here. Let's have a constructor and pass this data source of type remote data source. And what this now allows us here is we can create a Firebase data source where we just define all these actions in, so with this corresponding logic. But what we can also do is we can create our own fake remote data source that we actually pass for our test cases. So the fake remote data source will just simulate the behavior of your Firebase Firestore instance, but it won't actually make the network calls. It will just make sure that we have a remote data source that we can pass to the view model, or rather the repository, so that it works as expected. And then you just test if your app behaves correctly on the data it receives, but you don't test if the connection to Firebase actually works, because that is well tested in Firebase itself. So that as a little suggestion here. I'll remove that again. Let's get to the next point here. I have written down a use of global scope in chat fragment. Let's open chat fragment. Yeah, here, I actually selected it. You don't want to use global scope. You want to be very, very careful with that. And it actually tells you to annotate this with delegate coroutines API. Be careful with global scope. And especially in fragments and stuff like that. If you don't know why, global scope basically makes this coroutine that it launches alive as long as your whole application lives. If it, of course, doesn't finish before. So that can actually cause memory leaks if you launch it in a fragment, because the fragment lifecycle can end before your actual application lifecycle ends. And if you then still use resources in that, which can't get garbage collected by the garbage collector, then that can cause memory leaks. So what you instead want to use here in a fragment is view lifecycle owner dot lifecycle scope. There is already a scope that is adapted to the fragment lifecycle. If you use view lifecycle owner in an activity, you can just leave this away. So that will automatically cancel this coroutine when the fragment lifecycle actually finishes. Then one more thing I would criticize here is this function down here. You're extending the view inside of a fragment. Don't do that. For extension functions, I would always create a separate file, because let's say you then look for this function somewhere in your project. You just want to find where is the hide keyboard function that I actually used to extend the view type, and you don't really expect it to find it in your chat fragment. And yes, that is a private function, so you only want it to be accessible here in a chat fragment. I think this is a function that can actually be public. This hiding a keyboard is something you need quite often in Android. So I would just take this function, this piece here, and do something like, I would usually create a package for that, like util, for example. And in that util package, I then create a class, or rather a file, view extension. And then I just paste this function in there. And in our fragment, we then just need to import that here. And that is much clearer because View extension already tells you, hey, this file contains extension functions for views. Then another thing I noticed, I don't know in which fragment, yeah, here we can see that it still uses Kotlin synthetics, which you shouldn't use anymore. So you explicitly need to opt into that by using this ID Kotlin Android extensions plugin. But that is not recommended anymore. What you should instead use is simply view binding. View binding makes sure that your views can't be null if you can access these in a fragment. If you use it like this can still happen. So in future, make sure to get into view binding. It's very simple, and then use that instead in your projects. And then one last thing I want to mention here is into do fragment. Here we can see current time.text is equal to a big expression here. This is actually business logic. So you're actually having some kind of logic, and then depending on that, you decide what the text looks like. What if you want to unit test this code? Then it's now in your fragment. You don't want to you don't want to write unit tests for fragment. You unit test your view models usually. So I would just put the validation logic, or the logic that decides about what you assign here to the text. I would put that in the view model, and then you can easily unit test the view model and just get the data of that, the result of that calculation of that algorithm, if you want to call it so. You just get that in your fragment, and then you can just assign the result to your text view. Also here you can see it actually uses an instance of Firebase auth directly in the fragment, which I wouldn't do. So here, and I'm not sure where it uses that all, but that also makes your fragment hardly UI testable, because in every UI test you rely on that real instance of Firebase auth, which you don't have, or don't want to have rather, in UI tests. So that is something that belongs in a repository, and then you want to be able to easily swap out that repository with a fake one that you can use for your test cases. But all in all, congrats to this cool app. It was a lot of fun reviewing that, and I hope my feedback somehow helps you to build further apps. Let's get to place number 2, which is called NerdsOverflow. That is already a cool name. So congratulations to you who made this app, and it's basically kind of Stack Overflow. It's a simplified version of Stack Overflow. You can see I'm also already logged in here, and this looks kind of familiar actually. It looks similar to Stack Overflow. We have pagination in here, and in here we can then just create simple posts. You can see I already did that here. If I click on that, then you can see we can even attach code samples. That is something I really liked. We can even maximize these to see that. It is syntax highlighted. So that is something I liked, and you can see, so I asked a question here, and then other people can actually reply to that, and also reply with code comments here. So you can see that is a possible answer here, which doesn't make any sense because my question also doesn't make any sense, but that is how this app works. We also have a search function here. Yeah, let's search for NerdsOverflow. It's a real-time search, so without us needing to click a button or so, and we can then visit these user profiles. And you could already see that typewriter effect is something I really like, that has a little bit of a nerdy touch, which is actually what this app is about. Then we can swipe this away, and that's a bit weird. Experiencing that for the first time. I actually want to scroll down here, but this is not working. So if we click back, yeah, then we can. Okay, then already a little suggestion here for improving this app. If we want to create another post here, then we can click on this floating action button, write something here, write a question. We can choose a programming language where we have tons of options. I don't actually know if the person who made this used an API for that. I haven't looked into that, but if you have written down that manually, well then, good job. But I guess you used an API. So yeah, we can choose any kind of language here, and then we can just enter our code and then just post this. If we then reload this, there we go. There is our code and our question. Okay, I think that is everything I want to show you here. Well, here we can answer, obviously, to this post. I've showed you the search, and yeah, that's basically it. Do we have a profile where we can click on? Yeah, that is my profile, and here we can add some skills. But overall, a really cool app. Now I'm going to give you my feedback first for UI. So the first thing I would change here is this handle for the bottom sheet. I think this is a little bit too thick. These things are usually much lighter. I think this is way too dominant here. And if you would do it lighter, then you would actually more feel like that you can actually take this and drag it down. And then one more point regarding UI is this list here, rather these list items. I would probably make these a little bit smaller. There is so much unused space here for every list item. You could just move this this language chip a little bit to the top, and then you save a lot of space. Or what you could do is you could use this space to just display a little preview of the actual question. So you can already see here what this question is roughly about. But that is already it for the UI. Maybe you could decrease the shadow here a bit. I think that's a little bit too much. But yeah, let's get to the UX part. So on the one hand, I think that the user bottom sheet, when we search for user here, so when we click on that, then it's not really a bottom sheet, it's rather a top sheet. We can drag this to the top, but you can see wherever I leave it, it actually sticks there. This is not really a bottom sheet. With the bottom sheet, you just want to do this, and well, now it actually worked. But yeah, that is, you see what happens here. I showed you that before. If we drag it up, then we can't actually take a look at the search results anymore, or whatever that is here. So that is, you see, it's a little bit confusing and you don't really know what happens here. So that definitely needs to be improved. Then one more thing regarding UX is this notification button. It's not doing anything. Oh, I'm just seeing it says coming soon. Okay, so it's a feature that's not implemented yet. I haven't seen this toast before. I just wrote down that this doesn't do anything, but okay, if it's coming soon, then that's cool. And as a last thing, if you have a multi-line text field here, I wouldn't vertically center the text. I would let the text start from the top left corner, just like any other normal multi-line text field. I think this way it actually looks a little bit weird. But that is it with my feedback regarding UI and UX. Let's get into the coding part. Okay, let's see. So this project, what would I improve here regarding code? Again, I didn't look into every single class here, just into some common ones or some classes that I actually immediately saw here and checked, like main activity, for example. And here already the first issue, which I also talked about in the previous app. I wouldn't use the Firebase auth instance directly in the activity. I would do that all in the repository, which I think exists here. Does this have a repository? Yeah, here we have repositories. Yeah, so I would just do the auth stuff in a repository, even though it's very tempting to use it in an activity because it already comes with a singleton. You can just access here very comfortably. But as I said on the previous app, this is terrible testing wise. So if you want to write UI tests for this main activity, then this main activity actually relies on this Firebase auth instance, and you cannot really test that. Then another thing I've seen is that this app uses a base repository here. Looks like just every other repository needs this get user details function. It's okay, you can do that, but yeah, I would definitely make the base repository class, or rather the base repository definition, I would make that an interface, so that you just define the functions each single repository you have here needs, because that allows you, again, for testing, if you need these repositories in a view model. Let's take a look here. Maybe main view model. Yeah, If this would be an interface, you could easily swap this out for test cases with a fake repository, which you can't do right now. Right now it forces you to use this main repository implementation, which directly talks to Firebase. And in test cases, you don't want your unit tests to talk to Firebase. And then another thing I've seen is this loading dialog here. It's just normal dialog. I would pretty much always make my dialogues dialog fragments. So your dialogues are actually fragments, because in the end, these just survive screen rotations. So this loading dialog would just disappear if it shows up and you rotate the screen. With a dialog fragment, that does not happen. Then I looked up your RecyclerView adapters, for example, this one, and you're directly passing the list here into this adapter when you create it, and there's no real diffutil setup. So I would always use diffutil when actually updating a RecyclerView, and when I'm just working with adapters. You can already see this is what we actually want to avoid with diffutil. It already gives you warning. It will always be more efficient to use more specific change events if you can, because what this does is it basically notifies the RecyclerView that anything in it changed, but you don't really know why. That is just the lazy version of using diffutil. So that will always update your whole list, even though if you just changed one item. And because your RecyclerView in that case also doesn't know which items updated, it also can give you real good looking animations. Diffutil will take care of all of that. So if one item gets removed, diffutil just recognizes that and will animate that change, that removing of the item accordingly. And one more thing, the last thing actually, is here you can see you have so many activities, and I wonder why you don't use fragments. So I think there's just this home fragment. Yeah, looks like that is really the only one. So I don't really know why you only use one fragment. You usually just want to use as few activities as possible. Oftentimes you can get along with just using one activity and using fragments for the rest, or at least using one activity per entry point in your app. So for example, for auth, for all the main screen things, maybe for settings, but yeah, just dividing your app into its main components like auth, main, and stuff like that, and then having one activity per main component. And for each screen in these main components, you just use fragments. But that is it for my feedback. I hope that also helps you to improve your code in future. And now let's actually get to the winner, which I'll also review in UI, UX, and code. But there I obviously don't have that much to say, at least in regards to criticism. And this winning app is actually also called Devhub, just like the first one. It just looks a little bit differently and has a different job. So this is number one. This is the winner here. And it's basically also very similar to Stack Overflow, but it actually combines that with some more interesting things. So you not only have questions here, you also have announcement, tutorials, and you can basically post things in any of these. So everything that is actually interesting for a developer. For example, if you take a look here, you can see a company is looking for talented software engineers. Any important news here. Tutorials are relevant for developers, and of course questions. And here you also just need to log in, which I already am. If I click edit profile, then I can I can upload a photo here, which I won't do. I can choose a name, I can choose a bio, I can add some skills that will appear as kind of hashtags here, and I can add my social networks, which are actually relevant for developers, so GitHub, Behance, and Dribble. So let's click done now and finish. And let's see what this app can offer here. So let's just pick a random question here. Where can I find the best Cato course? And yeah, that is now a question, which is just an example text. And we can see replies here. Oh, I already replied on that one with the obvious answer. And then we can downvote and upvote replies. And that is weird. Why is it actually upvoting or downvoting twice? I think what happens here is I actually commented this with a different account, and then I forgot my password. I created another account, which I'm logged in now. And I think you're just comparing the username, because this account also is also called just Philipp, you're probably just removing the upvotes from Philipp. So there are actually 2 upvotes from Philipp, so you remove both. That needs to be overworked. So you just rather compare the user ID. But yeah, let's see, we can search here. We can also say, okay, we want to search for questions, announcements, tutorials, hashtags, users, and users by skill. So I don't actually know any users here, so I can hardly search for that. Yeah, actually there was someone, let's see. Karim, this is also who made the app, so good job, Karim. But let's search for Karim, because I think I didn't find him. If we search here, yeah, no results were found. I don't really know what I need to search for here, so that it actually works. But for your first name, it actually doesn't work. But what does work is if I click on your profile, then I can see that. It's a cool profile page. We can click on these links here. You can see the bio, follow, message, let's follow. You can see the skills. And yeah, the post this person just created. Then let's take a look here. That is our own profile, which also looks very professional. And we have notifications. So when someone actually interacts with our posts, replies or whatever, or sends us a message, then that will pop up here. And yeah, we actually have the option to send chat messages here, which I don't have yet. So let's visit Karim's profile again and send him a message. Hi. And you can see it displays that he's online. I'm not sure if that's actually true, because yesterday that was already the case. This morning it was the case, and now it's the case. Maybe that's a display issue, but let's see how quickly he can reply. Nevertheless, I really like this app. And if we want to create a post, we simply click this floating action button. We can say test. And that's actually weird here. If I click, you see, if I now click tab to actually get into the next text field, it adds a tab. And when I then click backspace, it writes test again. So that's weird, but I don't know if that's actually an issue of your app. For the content, let's also just write test. Oh, I'm already doing it again. Hashtags are also test. And now we can select if that is a question, an announcement, or tutorial. Let's post it as a tutorial. We can attach images, which I don't have here in this emulator. So let's just hit submit. Valid title. Okay. Test, test, test. Submit. Valid content. Test, 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 test. Okay, and I can see it's actually uploading the post in our notifications. So it's using a background service to do that, which is also cool. That is a good way to solve that, because maybe your app crashes directly after you post a post, and then your service would still upload the post. Alternatively, you could also use Work Manager for that. So we can click close here. How do we reload this? Oh, we don't even need to. Okay, it looks like it's a real-time update. Here's our test post that I just created. I can upload this. You can't upload your own post. Okay, I can't upload this post. Okay, I can also can't download it. Yeah. Okay, no, never mind. So Karim, really nice app. I really like this. This is the winning app. Let's actually get to the feedback, which I don't have that much for. Starting with the UI, I only have one major thing here, and that is the font. I think the font overall is a little bit too thick. So at least these descriptions here. I would maybe choose a lighter font variant here for that, because it really looks like as if it really screams at you, because you have a bold title, and this also looks kind of bold, just a smaller font. So yeah, I would just decrease the font weight here a little bit. That is what I have in regards to UI. For UX, when you actually reply here, it's also a very minor issue. So let's say I reply here. Then I would like if this actually scrolls down to my comment so I can see it. But yeah, that is a very minor issue. I'm not sure if it actually does that for the chat messages. If not, then this feedback also counts for that. One more thing, if I actually log out here, then we see some onboarding. When I swipe here, then what often happens is that we actually swipe to the last thing. So it doesn't stick to the second thing if we don't release it now. So if we swipe a little bit too far, it will directly swipe to the third one. And also this back arrow here doesn't do anything. So I don't know what this is for. We can also click skip here. Yeah, and then we just need to log in. But that is it what I have in regards to UI and UX. Let's get into the code. So there we are. Here I also don't have that much to complain about. One thing that I really don't like is how you format your code. I don't know if your keyboard has a space key, but use it. Here you can make a space, here you can make a space. You know, space. Here no space. The formatting is just very weird. You just feel free to use your space key. So if you just hit the auto format in Android Studio here, you can see how many spaces you're actually getting here. It formatted 55 lines just in this file. So if we take a look at another file and do that again, then yeah, you just see how all these spaces are getting added. So I would actually do that. It just makes your code a lot more readable. And one more thing I noticed is that this also doesn't really have a real data layer. Let's see, where can we see that? Probably in some kind of view model. But it didn't find any repository, so it looks like you're also just handling the data in the view models. If I'm not completely wrong here. So yeah, that looks like you're dealing with data. I would also do that in a repository because it just improves testability. I assume you don't have any test cases here. Let's take a look. No, you don't. So there's always a reason why we actually have a software architecture like MVVM. So then I would also stick to it, because one major point of why we do that is just that we have it much easier to actually test our code and just separate our different concepts, our UI, business logic, and our data layer. But all in all, it was a real pleasure to review your apps. These are 3 very great apps, and yeah, each of you 3 can actually pick one of my paid courses, so you can just respond to the email you actually used to submit your project. Tell me which of my paid courses you would like to have, and then I will unlock it for you. And for all others here, just let me know down below if you like when I review your apps. So I thought about that I could maybe also just review someone's app in more detail in a whole video, so that you can actually see how I would restructure your code, that you can see what's maybe not so optimal, what is optimal. Yeah, so that you can actually learn a much cleaner way to code. So really, apart from these PAW challenges, just would you like me to make such a video where I just analyze one of your projects? Apart from that, thanks for watching this far, and I'm happy to see you back in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.